Greetings and welcome. This is the view from Red Room. We've had a stunning wolf moon, which is very appropriate for this video. Yeah, and even I got to see it. Weather is cold, but sunny often and pretty, so we'll take that. And yeah, as you can see, we've got all of the highlighting done now on Mr. Biggy McFarlane Marine. So the process I outlined in the last video, we've just carried on and done across the whole thing. Arms. You may wonder why I've got the gun actually in his hand rather than having it separate, because obviously that would make it easier to paint. Well, because it's such a tight fit, and I only managed to get it in there by heating it up with water. I don't really want to try and do that when I've got it fully painted, because I'm so concerned I'm going to actually ruin it trying to jam it in there. So I'm going to just leave it like that for now. Kind of got it out of the, not exactly in position, so I can paint what I can. But I think overall that'll just make my life easier. I think that's the thing with these, there's quite a lot of variation in how they come. A few warps. It's fine, it's fine. I mean, Forge World can be far worse, I'd argue. So yeah, but anyway, we are going to be focusing on doing his belt, and yeah, his little wolfy sporny thing, loincloth. I'm not too sure what you'd call it. Yeah, see if we can get the majority of this detail done on the armour. Yeah, this was made with epoxy sculpt and a bit of aluminium salvage from a drinks can. Yeah, in the middle, just to give it that little bit of strength and that template to work off of. Very useful thing to sort of use for various projects like that, and also doing banners, because it's you know, thin, flat, and you can bend it in a way that, yeah, looks like it's being twirled by the wind. So yeah, other than that, a bit of leather thread was used for the string. Wish I'd sanded this more. It's very rough and ready, but hey, it may look like beaten metal, so yeah, it may come together, because I'm not too dissatisfied with how my wolfing up of the skull went there. So yeah. Obviously it'd be nice to show you the process I did with the gold, but we will do that on another project. So yeah, let's get started. Main thing to really decide is what colour we want to do this. Obviously with a marine that's already grey, we don't want to choose a colour that could end up just sort of blending in and not a bit popping, so we might do brown, but I don't know. There are other greys. We could include a lot of white as well. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with the belt. I think it's going to be my standard sort of red and white. I don't know. That'll be gold. So yeah, these will just be a straight up brown, I think. Yeah. Let's probably start with them, I guess. Cool. Let's get cracking. Yeah, we're using Vallejo Black Red for this. Somebody had a thread in Reddit about how they only see in grayscale, and oh wow, that's quite a challenge. So I'm going to try and bear that in mind in future and make sure that everyone can follow what I'm doing, even if they can't necessarily see the colours involved. And we're going to use a Rosemary & Co. Zero brush for this kind of base coating. I really do need to get some better browns, I've got to say. I'm still slightly limited in my painting choices because most of my paints from back in the day are dried up and gone dead now, alas. So, yeah. Really missing scorched brown or whatever it's called these days. It's funny the way that the stuff from the 90s lasted longer than the stuff from a bit more recent times, yeah. I think I have decided I'm going to do the wolf's fur grey, but a different kind of grey. And yeah, we're going to focus on making it nice and yeah, a nice amount of white in there to contrast what we're doing. I'm going to use a bigger brush as well, because this is silly. I've got to say I'm not hugely impressed with this base brush. Oh yes, and I've just broken my own rule. We're using some Vallejo dark grey here, dark grey. Yeah, this hasn't been the greatest brush in the world, but it'll do for just slapping some paint on. I know it's very trendy to, well, it's always been the case to bash Games Workshop stuff. I mean, most of it isn't terrible. Some of it's definitely kind of overpriced, I suppose. But it doesn't deserve quite the amount of grief it gets. Well, the purchases I want to make is a fur mould from Green Stuff World, because they're really useful. But I was feeling cheap, so here we are. It's just a process of endlessly scratching away at it with a knife or sharp implement. So we're not being careful about this at all, because there's no need to be, really. There's no need to be. Only exception being around the armour, because we don't want to get that. We don't particularly want to mess that up, but it's not the end of the world. Mistakes will happen. Hello, Mr Compressor. Sorry, we just had an appearance of from my beloved air compressor, which is not at all made me jump yet again. And I'm not going to worry too much about doing the undersides of this, because again, by the time we get down to that part, they will be white, so the base colour would be different anyway. I've also picked up a razorback, so we're going to be doing that. We're going to be going outside of our comfort zone. This is the trouble, you see little pointy outfits, and I just put it down and oh dear, they get knocked off. Careful, we need to be careful. But yeah, I'm going to step slightly out of my comfort zone. It's not going to be a Space Wolf one, it's going to be a Blood Angels one, I think. Because I don't have any Dark Angels green, or Caliban green as I think it's called now, so we're going to do that instead. And then yeah, maybe we'll do some orcs or something, because we need to not just sit in our little rust grey world. And here comes Luna. To explain Luna's situation, if you've seen her in the front beginning of this video, she's got a small issue where when she came to us, she is a rescue pussycat. She had a wound on her side that unfortunately she cannot leave alone and wants to constantly attack. So we must keep her in a cone until we can get it to a point where either she's not interested in it anymore, or we're going to have to possibly have surgery to remove whatever's irritating her so much she can't leave it alone. It does seem perhaps to be a behavioural issue, I don't know, but she's fine. We love her dearly, and we will overcome this. Just in case anyone was worrying what was going on there. Right. So I'm just going to go for some straight up white from Vallejo. Some reason that is one criticism I would have of Citadel. Their white paints are not great. Ooh. So yeah, we're just going to mix the dark grey and the white together and blend them in. We'll blend them in more. But as I say, at the moment this is just the rough draft. And this is where you can go dry brushing crazy if you wish. But yeah, I'll be looking forward to using my airbrush to paint with red, because that was always such a nightmare back in the day. I'm not a fan of priming things white. I prefer to work dark and go up than work light and go down, if that makes any sense, you know. To be honest, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. So let's go up a notch. Yeah, so by the time we get into this middle part here, we're just sort of dry brushing lightly, whereas here we're just, yeah, slapping it on still because it doesn't matter so much. We don't want to make it look light. So much of this is practice. I mean, honestly, guys, if you're just starting out, please, please don't beat yourself up and go, oh, why can't I do this? Especially if you're under a certain age. I mean, I can remember thinking, oh, I will never be able to do this. This is beyond me. But it's just practice, patience, perseverance. It's those P words that are usually not what you want to hear when you're starting out. Sometimes you've got to learn some techniques, definitely. I would never say that you can just sort of learn in a vacuum necessarily, but there'll always come a point where you might need some pointers from elsewhere. But now you've got the whole of YouTube and all of that to look at. I didn't have that sort of resource back then. None of us did, obviously. We just had a White Dwarf and the painting guides we had in there to look at. And later on a few websites and everything. You can see how we're building this up now. So we go up a notch again. Up a notch again. And I think now, final bit of white now. In fairness, this is going to be still going to be a blend. I'll have to do another proper bit of white now. This is where I don't mind the edges being just pure white, because yeah, that suggests that it is getting genuinely lighter towards the edges. And white animal fur is very, very white, as my little pussycat Luna will attest. Same thing again, yeah, just obviously starting very bright at the edges and then just turning it more into dry brushing as we get towards the middle, like that. Yeah, right, let's give us a bit of genuine white. Right, we'll see how we think about that when we're all done. Now we're going to use a bit of royal purple, and we're going to add it to the black red to make it, well, more red, weirdly enough. This purple stuff is very fluid, it seems. Still a bit too purple there. We're gonna add some red. I'm gonna use some McFarlane red. We're gonna shake up the McFarlane red. And yeah, that's just to say to people, don't be afraid to play with colours and to learn how they work. Don't be afraid of mixing that's silly. And that these wet palettes do make life a lot easier. I can't stress that enough, I cannot. Right, let's see what we think about that then. Forgive me for my wanderings off camera. I'm getting used to the idea of having this filmed, so. Okay, so what are we going to do on the back here? Alright. Ooh, old school colour, snakebite leather. See how fluid they were back in them days. It's a very good colour for doing, as the name might suggest, leather. Pro tip with these get a bottle opener, makes your life easier for opening them up. I saw a video from Squidmar about these old paints and you know how they stack up against today's paints, I guess. And I think the mistake that he was making, I don't think putting it on a wet palette is necessary. These are so fluid, I wouldn't bother. These were designed for an era where, yeah, you didn't have a wet palette, you just sat there with all your little pots and half the time knocked them over and spilt them everywhere and went, ah. Not to say that, of course, nobody knocks their paints over now. That would be, oh, silly. let's tackle you now. Which actually, yeah, will give us a way of talking about how we do gold. Or how I do gold, anyhow. I love that this is called Tinny Tin, like Chippy Chips! Yay! But this is the closest equivalent I've got to the old Citadel colour tin bits, which is the best thing for sort of basing gold, I find. At some point I've got to actually get myself doing some non-metallic metal, because I've never really bothered with that. Partly out of laziness, fear of the new, all of this, you know, being stuck in my ways. Also, I just... if you're happy with your golds, I mean, you know, you're not going to necessarily want to change that up, I guess. But it is a useful skill. So, again, we will be attempting that at some point. Not on Biggy, though. Let's do the silver trim now. So I'm going to start with a base of lead belcher. Okay, pretty certain that's brown red down there, so we're going to go back to that and use that to start highlighting the leather pouches at the back. Right, I think we're going to use some Wraithbone to highlight it with. Wow, that isn't well mixed. That's more like it. And I've used far too much of that. Foolish. We'll do that. We intend to put a wash on this that'll make it considerably darker. Even so, I still think that's a little bit too light. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So again, we're just going to go up to the recesses and then leave them there. So slowly build up the contrast. fine washes are a very good way to bring subtlety when you've got quite a bit of contrast. If you think, oh no, it's just too much of a gap you're bridging there, but yeah, they can bring them down, make everything look a lot more subtle. The other thing I don't know if I mentioned in my last video is to use the side of the brush to do edge highlights, not the tip, unless you have to, or unless you want to, or whatever. But yeah, grind away like you're on Jet Set Radio or something. Because then you'll find it is a lot easier to get those crisp edge highlights. Oh, my brush is not playing the game, alas. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Okay, I think we're going to do one more edge highlight on that, and then we're going to say Wash time. Let's see what we think after that. I'm aware that this is probably getting on a little bit in length now, so yeah. Okie dokie, let's see what happens there. So we're going to use some flesh wash. This is another vintage pot, probably more for the noughties than the 90s, this one. These are very potent, these ones. You need to water them down a lot, or yeah, prepare to face the consequences, because they are very rich. And that can be good for certain things, but they're a bit overpowering without just toning them down a little tiny bit. And obviously when you apply washes there is a chance of messiness by their nature. Just all you can do is be careful really, and accept that there's probably going to be a little bit of clean up. So the main thing is, yeah, make sure your brush isn't just completely overloaded. Right. Ah, curses. What happened here? Oopsie doodle. This is why we need to be careful with our where we wave our model. Ah, rubbish. We'll sort that out. Never mind. Okay, I'm going to leave it here. I will catch you next time. Cheers, thank you, bye.